old for video games?
You have failed.
The same way, I will destroy you. And my friend is truly dead.
Now this is pod racing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Graying Jedi. I am UrzaMaster. Joining me as always, Lord Uther and Jedi Master Psyllium Maas. Gentlemen, welcome to the Council. We convene on this 16th occasion as we delve further into the world in a galaxy far, far away with Cassian Andor. And this, the 9th episode, One Way Out. I have a lot to say about this episode. It's going to be good. I want to turn this over to Jedi Master Psyllium Maas to give us some background, and we're going to go through this one. There's going to be a lot to say. So take it away, Jedi Master Psyllium Maas.
Thank you, Jedi Master UrzaMaster. Thank you, Jedi Master Lord Uther. And thanks to all of you at home in your own galaxies and nebula tuning in to the Graying Jedi and our other podcasts and transmissions from Pending Rebrand. I'd like to especially welcome and thank a supporter right here in the Outer Rim, Jimmy Estes, whom I had the pleasure of working with for many years together. He's an Atlanta Braves fan, but we won't hold that against him. And he's also a big Star Wars fan, and so we feel he's right at home here. So thank you, Jimmy, for subscribing and joining us on our weekly adventures into a galaxy far, far away. So yes, we are here to discuss the third episode of the Narkina 7 arc. It first aired on November 9th, 2022, and it is titled One Way Out. And we will explore all the permutations of that as this episode goes. This is the last time we will see director Toby Haynes, who did the previous two for us, and the last time this season we'll hear from writer Beau Willimon, the showrunner for House of Cards. And they've done a fantastic job as always, and this episode is no exception. In fact, Beau Willimon is awaiting word as to whether he will take home a Primetime Emmy next month, as this episode has been nominated for Outstanding Writing in a Drama Series. So this was the selection that the Emmy voters picked for Andor to stand out. And you'll see why as we go through it. I sort of nicknamed this episode, which has a very classical structure to it, Two Monologues and a Conversation. And we don't spend a lot of time with supporting characters per se, unless they're directly involved with those monologues and the conversation. We barely touch on what's going on Ferrix, for example. And there's some intrigue at the ISB that leads to some big revelations down the road. We don't see Cyril or his mom, and we don't get to see Val and some of the other characters that we've been following here. But make no mistake, this is one of the best prison breaks you'll probably get your hands on here. And that includes Fox's Prison Break, which aired for 3 or 4 seasons. And eventually people figured out that all they were going to do each season is break out of prison. So once the allure wore off, then viewers turned elsewhere. But when it started, it was pretty fun. So I'm going to start us out today and bring the council in for their thoughts as we go through those monologues and a conversation. And we're going to start with the conversation, which takes place on Coruscant, and it's a three-hander. Of course, we're having a meeting in Mon Mothma's Coruscant skyline apartment. Mon Mothma played by Genevieve O'Reilly. We also have Tay Koma, her Shanlindrian ally, banking ally, who's been trying to help her move money without drawing undue attention from the Empire, that she can help fund the fledgling Rebel Alliance. Tay Koma is played by the actor Ben Miles. I'd like to point him out on this episode. He's been with us a couple of episodes, but I'd like to point out Ben. You've seen him before, and fairly recently, in Ridley Scott's Napoleon. He also had a supporting role in V for Vendetta and Speed Racer. So he worked for the Wachowskis for a couple of pictures in the early to mid 2000s. The third member of the party is the newcomer. He is also Chandrilian, and he is somewhat more murky in his allegiances and alliances. That is Davos Skolden, which is a great Star Wars name, Davos Skolden. And he's played by a British actor, Richard Delane. And you've seen Richard in Argo. You've seen him in a couple of streaming series that have rabid followings, Peaky Blinders and The Crown. And he makes for a delicious villain by doing nothing more than sitting on a couch. So, let's talk about the proposal, the indecent proposal that Davo makes in order to get Mon and Tay out of their jam. First of all, once again, and I've said this on other episodes prior on The Graying Jedi, please go ahead and click subscribe and go back and see our catalog. But you will say that this is the fullest portrait of Mon Mothma that has ever been realized so far in the Star Wars universe. Again, from her briefing sequence in Return of the Jedi to her cameo appearance in Rogue One to now. She is a fully dimensional, warm-blooded mom, senator, wife, rebel. So many different layers the writers and showrunner Tony Gilroy have given her to play. It's almost like looking at a different character. And I think what'll be fun is if eager Star Wars viewers go back and watch some of her earlier appearances and have that backstory in mind. And it might reflect, some more of the characterization and so forth. But she has really, truly given us, an absolutely fully three-dimensional human being in place of just sort of a statuesque figurehead leader of, one of the good ones. And she's been in turmoil all season. And here she's looking to make an alliance with Davo, who has a large and successful, one would presume, financial shipping and smuggling and so forth. He probably mixes his legal and illegal businesses. As she puts it, she's looking for alternative financing. And so he has the umbrella, the cover, to be able to make her money move without drawing that imperial attention. But it's going to come at a cost. And the first delicious part of this conversation is that these two can't stand each other. You have Tay sort of nervously trying to keep the peace. But their contempt for each other is obvious, but it is done so in very diplomatic small talk and the veneer of polite behavior. So they manage to sort of hurl little daggers at each other, while all the while seeming, just like it was a friendly get-together of fellow Chandrilians, for afternoon tea. And I love it. And the back and forth between them during their tete-a-tete here is marvelous. When she asks him, what does he want for his services? He says, oh, I don't require payment. And she says, I don't want to owe you any favors. Right? Very direct. And so he says, all right, I'd like a return invitation. And she says to herself, well, we can certainly arrange that. And he says, and I'd like to bring my 14-year-old son. And apparently, as we've learned about Chandrillian culture, in dealing with Mon Mothma's marriage and her daughter, and it should be mentioned that neither her daughter nor her husband like her very much and give her nothing but scorn and suspicion and coldness. It's not even just indifference, it's an actual aggressive coldness to their mother and wife. Apparently they marry young. Apparently Mon Mothma in an earlier episode referenced how they were probably 16, I think. She drops an age when she and her husband were first wed, and they've been together ever since. And that's what Davo would be the opportunity to introduce his son to Mon Mothma's daughter, Leda. And she's horrified, like absolutely horrified that would be the bargaining chip necessary. But what choice does she have? And this is the brilliance of the set design and the director, Toby Haynes, is that in all of these scenes with Mon Mothma in her Coruscant, luxury penthouse, she always looks like a prisoner. They always put her in the center of the frame, and she's dwarfed by all this Art Deco architecture. And even when there's other people in the room, it looks like she's basically in a gilded cage. And when the gentlemen get up to leave from the conversation, that's the shot that lingers, is her sitting perfectly straight, perfect posture on this couch, and it looks like the walls have already closed in, like a trash compactor on the Death Star. So she refuses him flat out, and Davo, again, not one to back down from a challenge, says, well, sometimes our position makes our decisions for us. And he said, let me know when you've considered it. And I am not considering it. I am not thinking about it. And he turns and looks at her coolly and says, that's the first untrue thing you've said all day. So, gentlemen, just your thoughts of how Genevieve O'Reilly is giving blood to this character, and just again starting off with sort of playwright driven dialogue, which is where Beau Willimon got cut his teeth as a writer. And again, the knives were out and blood was drawn, even if we didn't see a single drop on camera.
It was Shakespearean. That whole sequence was absolutely outstanding from start to finish. I mean, if you told me that Virginia Woolf wrote this exchange, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Or Shakespeare, or any of the hoity-toity English writers who write the comedies of manners and the royalty experience, shall we say. And it feels very much like a gilded cage, but so much so beyond that. I mean, you get the feeling that Davo knows exactly what she's doing. He knows exactly what she's doing. You want access to your money? Of course you do. You want it for charity? Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's what it's for. He doesn't care. He's met with her husband multiple times. He says it. He's like, her husband's probably actively funding the Empire, probably actively aided and abetted Palpatine prior to the Empire. And now she's taking the opposite course. He's the one profiting. He's like, I don't need the money. I have more money than God, for crying out loud. I want what I want. I want the power. And the power is marrying into the powerful family, because he is the merchant class that clearly has influence well beyond the leadership class, which is, I mean, is there anything more Shakespearean at this point? And you get this sense of he doesn't care which side wins, which side loses. He just knows that he can obfuscate himself from both sides and will play his cards exactly how he wants to. And it's the luxury of being ultra wealthy. He even talks about how the luxury of being rich means he gets to not care what others think. And it's just so, he's such a like he is the Jabba the Hutt, yes, without being a big slug. Yes. And that's, I mean, originally, when Jabba the Hutt was just a dude in a king costume, like, I mean, this is the coolest thing that I've seen, I think, to date on Andor. Is like, this is the Jabba the Hutt we never got. Ruthless, not necessarily cold or unfeeling. Like, I don't think he's entirely unsympathetic. I think he just literally doesn't care about whomever is on. He's like, whatever, I've got enough money to buy my way out of anything. Whether or not that parses out to be true, who knows? But I would wager, more than likely, guy's going to be fine. Rebel Alliance, no Rebel Alliance, Empire, no Empire, Jedi, Sith. Like I said, it's the stories beyond these things that matter. And there's plenty of them. There's plenty of warlords, rich merchant class, both benevolent and, completely villainous. And some just neither. They are amoral. They don't care. They're out to make a buck. I have to say, of all of the things that go on in this episode, and there's a lot of amazing things, this was probably my favorite. I may have a bit of a bias because I think Genevieve O'Reilly does an outstanding job acting through this scene. And in every scene she's in, she kind of steals this show. Again, I think we said it last week, we could really rename this show Mon Mothma and be completely on point. It's so deliciously layered, and you never think about this from the original trilogy or even anything up until Andor about Mon Mothma, and like her true role is just as interwoven into every layer of the rebellion and or empire as any other big money player. The Jedi really kind of have a tertiary role in the Rebel Alliance, and this is the kind of stuff that fleshes that out, and that is so cool to see.
Well, how much do you believe in something or believe in the cause?
Right.
Are you willing to betroth your daughter because that's what it's going to take? Which, by the way, hearing that makes you well, at least for myself, I assume that that's how she wound up getting married, which is why she's not happy, because she obviously has the childhood sweetheart who's trying to make all this happen for her by setting up, this meeting with this guy. So, I just think it continues to bring us back to those thoughts of, is something important enough, and you believe in it that much that you will sacrifice everything that you love to make it happen. And you can see it in her face, like she's trying to figure out what to do. She's cornered. She probably doesn't have a choice. And I also think it's funny that he said it's because of all of these senatorial decisions that now he says, because of what you did in the Senate, now you're coming to me because you need the money to kind of cover up everything that you're doing behind the Senate's back. So it's like this real weird circle of events that are playing off of each other that's pushed her into this position that she may have to betroth her daughter for that. And again, do you believe in it enough that you're willing to do that? That's a tough question.
Indeed. And we could have done an entire episode with the schemings and machinations of Chandrillian banking and the watchful eye of the Empire. But this is, again, the final episode of the 3-episode Narkina 7 arc. And we have Cassian Andor and his motley crew of fellow inmates trying to probe their way, discover how it is they can win their freedom, especially after it was learned that they will never be released. And in fact, it was an accidental parole that got 100 men fried on level 2 in the prior episode. What strikes me, and I want to turn it over to UrzaMaster to lead the discussion there, is how compelling and rich the main spine of this episode, which is the prison break, plays with, again, Andor sort of taking a supporting role. For a show that's named after him, a lot of other characters are given their moments to shine in the spotlight and actually take charge of the scene and drive the narrative. And I don't think Diego Luna has a problem with that. I think he's a generous and unselfish actor and doesn't demand that, hey, I want to be the hero. But I'd like UrzaMaster to lead us in the big action sequence that we've been building up to now over the past 2 episodes. It's been a lot of putting in time on the day shift, but that ends now, and let's see what the council had to say.
I loved it. I don't think there's going to be a surprise when we get to our lightsaber ratings, because this is intense. You know, it's the story of a rebel alliance, and it takes more than one hero. You have to have leaders rise up, but they have to be the right people, and that's kind of the story of the whole show. It's a microcosm of everything. Is you can't have the rebel alliance we know from A New Hope without your big money players like Mon Mothma, Kino Loy in this case. You can't have people without. You can't have this without people like Luthen, who are willing to do what it takes and break those rules. I think Andor kind of steps into that role here. And then you've got sort of the rank and file, which is the rest of, you know, our cast here, who, you know, some of them are standout. We get a couple of characters that sort of take charge and make things happen. You know, that's your Vals, that's your, you know, other rebels in this case who are sort of coalescing. And it kind of goes all the way up. And you get an Empire that's basically caught off guard, understaffed. And that's pretty much how you get Rogue One. I mean, it's the Empire getting caught off guard. They're not staffed right. Now, granted, they have a giant weapon that they end up using. But in all things, you know, this is really the moment, I think, where Andor starts to realize this thing is bigger than him, and he needs to push the right people to the right places, and that's just his function. I also think that's why he meets his untimely demise in Rogue One. You know, he could have easily been a hero of the Rebel Alliance, but that was not his function. He was always meant to set it up for success in the future, down the line. He's the ray of hope that brings the hope to A New Hope, if you will. And Kino Loy, I mean, Andy Serkis is just outstanding in this episode. But he takes command. He's the general that they need in the field, making all of the decisions, even though he's getting pushed in the right direction. He's Andor before Aldhani. And now Andor is playing that part of Luthen and pushing him through, like, you need to do this. They respect you. You're the one who can get this done. And it's funny because, you know, at the moment of escape, he's like, I can't even swim. You know, he literally sacrificed everything to get the job done, like Luthen, and we'll talk about that here in a second. And now it's come to that moment of truth, and I think it's probably foreshadowing in a way. But all of these prisoners that are now freed are built-in rebels. They know what the Empire is doing. None of them are leaving this prison with any illusion about what the Empire is really doing behind closed doors. And they're going to carry that notion forward to their respective worlds that they escape to. And by and large, I mean, this is what, you know, it's 100 men per floor or per wing, however many wings, 7 wings per floor, 7 floors. That's a lot of people who just escaped a prison that are going home, probably at least 75% of which are going to go directly to the Rebel Alliance. So that's, I mean, it's tumbling the dice and the dominoes towards the inevitable conflagration that I assume we're about to see in the next couple episodes. But just a master class in writing, and that soliloquy that Kino Loy delivers and that rallying cry of one way out is just, I mean, one way out, A New Hope. It's man, it's power. It's so much power, and it's amazing. I mean, it's truly, there's a reason why this episode was nominated for an Emmy, and that reason could be split amongst any of these sequences, but that one is probably the one that titillated the most.
I think this is the catalyst for the entire rebellion, is all these guys leaving, right? Like, sometimes you don't want to believe something, you don't think it's as bad as it is, or you're just trying to get by, and now you're going to have these guys coming back saying, "Hey, you know, the wool has been pulled from over our eyes. We can see what's going on. Here's what's really happening." You know, it's almost like it's, and I'll say this too, I feel like it's the first time we feel like the Empire is really wrong or bad. Like, I don't know how much, because we've had these discussions episode after episode after episode about, well, it could be either side. You could kind of understand and see either side. And now it's more of, okay, yeah, now we're starting to draw this line between what we consider good and bad. And these prisoners are now going to take that and they're going to run with it. My only slight, well, yeah, I like the thought of Andor being the one who's pushing Kino along, because you're right, that's exactly what's happening. I mean, he even knows, like, Andor knows that he can't go up to that microphone and say anything that would imbue the prisoners with that power or that feeling like, yeah, we can get out of here. He knew it had to be Kino. And I just love how he's like, that's all you got? That's all you have to say? And, like, all of a sudden, Kino's like, "Brah!" And he just comes up with that whole thing. I mean, this is an episode where we get two... I'm trying to think of another TV series where you get two motivating and incredibly pivotal monologues that propel the series completely forward. I really can't think of another series that has, or another just episode that has two things like that are so monumentally important to what's going to happen. My only thing is, I kind of find it hard to believe that there wasn't a ship for Kino to get off, like he would be able to get away from there with. But that's okay. That's all right. We'll see what happens. There's still episodes to go, but that's the only thing I struggle with just a little bit. Otherwise, beautiful, perfect.
I love that, as Uther says, I mean, and Ursa, that the Empire now has come down unequivocally on the side of evil. But again, we see that those scared bureaucrats, like I believe Andor says, they panicked when they fried level 2. Power doesn't panic. And so it's almost like they know that they're basically, there's thousands of heads of cattle behind the fence. And if the fence breaks and they stampede, we don't have enough people to, keep the waves from overwhelming us. And where do we finally see them? I mean, they have weapons, right? They have the ability to fight back if they so chose, and a couple of them do and meet their ends. They're hiding. They're crouching in the dark in a storage cabinet somewhere, hoping that the mob doesn't come for them. So again, it's Kino that helps break through that mentality, that sheep versus shepherd mentality, and says, do whatever you can. Rise up, climb up, get to the top. Again, Andy Serkis, who made his career playing motion capture creations that are indelible in our collective imaginations, from Gollum to King Kong to what have you, Planet of the Apes, Caesar, I believe he played. When he gets to be in front of the camera, just as Andy Serkis, you kind of say to yourself, well, I mean, why is he not doing more? Just, no makeup, no dots on the face, and running around, my precious. I mean, because he starts off this episode like he still doesn't want to believe, and Andor has to talk him into it, still has to drive him. He still wants to find a way out that doesn't involve escape, especially when Andor's like, we got to go tomorrow. Like, they'll never be weaker than they are right now. And as soon as they figure that out, then we're never getting out of here. And then prodded by Andor to deliver that fiery speech where he repeats Andor's own words, I'd rather die trying to bring them down than die giving them what they want. And then just heartbreaking, I can't swim. In the sense that he actually says to them when they're, before the escape attempt, he says, I'm starting off with the theory I'm already dead. So we'll see where it goes. So here's a man that probably in the back of his mind all day, even as they were having success, even as they were overpowering guards, getting weapons, getting to the top level to be able to jump, into there. In the back of his mind, he might have already known that there was only one way out, and this was a ride that he wasn't going to finish. And to still show that leadership and courage, facing that, it's pretty impressive. I would hope that if I had to meet my medal in a moment like that, I could be that brave. And we'll leave his fate uncertain for now. We do know that Andor and his fellow inmate Melshi are running through a barren landscape a la Harrison Ford in The Fugitive. And we can only hope that the Empire doesn't have Dedra or somebody with Tommy Lee Jones's skills to track them down before they can make their escape. So that was a nice callback, inadvertently to that very successful feature there. We don't get a lot of Dedra and ISB, but we get enough to learn that they have successfully set the trap for Anton Krieger and his attack on the Imperial Power Station at Spellhouse. And so it's only a matter of time before they walk into a slaughterhouse, presumably. And we kind of, for the first time, we've seen him around the briefing table. We haven't spent any time with him outside of the morning meetings. But we meet Lonnie Jung, who's a new father, has a wife and I believe a daughter. And he's got kind of a weird squirrely mustache, kind of like a Steve Buscemi type, if you will. I mean, he's the guy that you completely overlook both in the meeting and at the office Christmas party.
It's the guy who grows a mustache that shouldn't grow a mustache.
Yes,
it's that guy.
He's wallpaper, right? He's just a guy that turns in his assignments on time and doesn't, unlike Dedra, who flexes. He's very much just keep my head down, do my job, or so we thought. And I'd like Jedi Master Lord Uther to bring us to the third. And I'd like to call one final attention to this, because this is our second monologue in two monologues and a conversation. Again, Beau Williman's first notable works were stage plays. And as you say, this episode is comprised primarily of dialogue and monologues thrown back and forth, volleyed like tennis balls in a furious Grand Slam event. And I watch it as a writer, and I know that even though I'm watching it for characterization and furthering the plot and so forth, I know that I'm hearing a master craftsman at wordsmithing doing his thing. It's almost like watching an episode of Aaron Sorkin, when he was doing television in the newsroom and so forth, or one of Aaron Sorkin's features. Like, there's an artificiality to it. You can hear that it's dialogue, right? You can hear, it doesn't sound like how natural people might speak in those situations. It's elevated. It's very well crafted and constructed. And again, you kick yourself for saying, boy, I wish I could have thought of something that quick, on the rejoinder. But I love it. It doesn't take me out of the story, but I recognize it in the moment that what I'm seeing is somebody, behind a keyboard, waving, the conductor's baton and bringing it forth. And it makes for great dialogue, and it makes for great performances for actors who know what to do with that dialogue when given the opportunity. And that leads us into our final component of this episode, with Luthen and Lonnie, who has been now revealed to be a double agent for the fledgling Rebel Alliance. And that's where Jedi Master Lord Uther will guide us along.
Well, first, I like how he's messing with Lonnie going up the elevator, pretty much ready to drop that, in my opinion, to drop that elevator if he's not hearing what he thought were going to be the right answers or the correct answers. even with the elevator shaking, and Lonnie probably knows it too. And Lonnie's also talking around what he's really getting at, which is he doesn't want to be a part of this anymore, right? And obviously, before he can say that, he gets to the top level where Luthen's at, kind of looking like a Jedi, a little bit, which I'm a little curious about that, but that's a whole nother thing. And so, standing there, or maybe a Sith, right? Because he's dressed in all this black. We don't know. And you bring up this point about, we know it's someone sitting behind a keyboard, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker just for what it was, because I think there are moments in your life where you do ponder things to the point that you hit it like a nail, right? Hit the nail on the head. And you can tell Luthen has pondered his fate for 15 years. I mean, he says, 15 years ago, I got it right here in front of me. I've been thinking about this every day, this equation, for 15 years. And he just goes into this whole thing about, I love that I burn my decency for someone else's future. And basically, he's saying he sacrificed everything of his decency. He says it right here. He's probably sacrificed relationships, money, success, however you want to look at it, just to try to be the catalyst that's going to bring this, what he believes, evil empire down to the ground, and won't let Lonnie wiggle his way out of this role, because I need all the heroes I can get, Luthen says. And, maybe even empowers Lonnie just a little bit by saying that. Even though you're a fly on the wall, you're a hero to this cause. And Luthen's basically saying, you're not getting out of this. This is going to happen,
Even
whether
more
you like
so
it or not.
by elevating Lonnie to say, I'd rather have every one of Krieger's men get killed than lose you. Because Lonnie tells him, if you don't warn them, they're going to be slaughtered. And he's like, fine. He's like, if I warn them, then they'll know there's something amiss in the ISB. And eventually all roads will lead back to you. And possibly he's like, so no. He's willing to sacrifice. We just saw him pitch this assault to Saw Gerrera a couple of episodes ago. And Luthen was invested. He was all there for it. And now on the flip of a switch, now that the Empire has cracked the ring and has gotten their purchase inside, he's just like, fine, it's cost of doing business. You're critical, Lonnie. And Lonnie's horrified, right? I mean, this is a guy that wants to be out of it, and he sees, the dark side of Luthen, the Sith costuming, if not Jedi there. And UrzaMaster, Stellan Skarsgård, he may do the Deep Blue Seas of the world, which, again, is a fun CGI shark movie. But give him a good monologue and see how he runs with it.
Absolutely. This gave me chills. This was Kenneth Branagh and Hamlet. This was everything I wanted to see from Luthen, and everything I thought Luthen was. It absolutely affirmed my belief that he was secretly a good guy, even though he says he has to use the weapons of his enemy. He has to use their tactics. He has to throw away everything he truly values in life to make sure that there's a better tomorrow. And that's what real heroes do. That's when there's an absolute victory that needs to be had, when there is a terrifying, horrible evil at bay. I think of I think of real life in this case. When we had had to take out Hitler, it's the same idea. There are a lot of covert, probably morally dubious things we had to do to ensure that that war effort was complete, and that we stamped out, those horrible, Nazis. And it's the same thing with the Empire, this totalitarian, far-reaching, very nefarious thing that, on the surface, there are good things the Empire does. They might build a an Autobahn or something, but, you know, there's so much evil at work that they don't show you or they don't talk about, and this is where this whole prison colony thing is again, Star Wars largely rooted in this kind of mythos, as we see with like early Marvel comics, Star Trek. It's all stories about World War II and the Cold War. It's really the same concept here. It's just it's spun a little differently, but it's basically this struggle between good and evil that isn't always a morally clear-cut decision. And Luthen is the one who has really been the only character to fully appreciate and realize that sometimes you have to throw your moral compass out the window and you have to do what is right and what needs to be done, regardless of the implications that may have. And that may include allowing a full-laid rebel plan to be devastated and blown up, sacrificing 50 men to the Empire for the greater good. And it's that kind of foresight that rebellions need to be successful. Unfortunately, I mean, like, rebellion is a bloody thing. Freedom fighting is a bloody thing. There really is no clean way to defeat, you know, an enemy of this nature.
And I don't think, and maybe you guys agree with me, I don't think that Mon Mothma, where she is now, would make that call. I think she would try to extradite Lonnie from his position, not out of some sense of, you know, family or something like that, but because she wouldn't, you know, just calmly sacrifice, you know, 50 other lives, you know, when they could be, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So it's interesting in terms of rebel leadership. Again, Mon Mothma is elevated to grand statesman and symbol and, you know, freedom fighter. But again, without Luthen doing the dirty work, and like I said, he's made his peace with it. You know, he knows he's going to hell, metaphorically, but and the victory that he seeks, I think he tells Lonnie, he'll never see that sunrise. He'll never see a world, a universe, a galaxy, maybe not under authoritarian rule, but he's going to do everything in his power to try to roll, you know, to ignite that spark, you know, and let the fires burn it out. But again, he's a real, I mean, just like Kino kind of knew, you know, that he was probably not going to make it off the prison wreck. Luthen is just like, you know, I'm going to do this until I can't do it anymore. But I have no illusions that I'm going to be like Chancellor of the Republic someday or get a hero's parade and so forth, you know. I have to work in the shadows, and no visual metaphor better than the absolute underbelly of Coruscant at night, industrial noises, and it's just, you know, what a contrast with Mon Mothma, who's in, again, we talked about her own prison with all the sunlight and the beautiful curtains and drapes. And there's Luthen down there in this industrial, grimy, you know, there could be death waiting around every corner. You know, even the elevators aren't safe. And he, you know, when he talks to Lonnie in the elevator there, you know, he sounds like a mob boss initially, like, so you have a new daughter. She's beautiful. Like, you know, like as if to say, like, you know, if you're here to betray me or you're going to sell me out, then, you know, something bad is probably going to happen to her. And that's the thing you associate with a villain, right? Like threatening a man's family, like if he doesn't do what you say. But in this case, I mean, again, those are the levers that he's willing to pull in order to, you know, for the greater good. So, I mean, that's...
He's establishing control, right? He's letting Lonnie know, I'm in control of the situation. And we also know he's calculated. Like, he thinks out every possibility. Hence the idea of, well, you know what? If we do try and help out in the situation, Empire's going to know that someone is feeding Axis info, so gotta sacrifice him. That's just, it's something that's got to be done. Oh, by the way, it's going to save you in the process too, is basically what he's saying, right? So he's continuously spinning it back onto Lonnie that these things have to be done to also kind of cover up for you too. So there's a lot of that. I mean, Luthen just, you know, extremely calculated, which when we get to Rogue One, it makes me wonder, what happened? or is he there in the background? Like, that's kind of the cool thing too. And this is something that we've brought up many times, no matter what the series is. We really don't know what happened to Ahsoka. She could still be around. We're not sure, right? Thrawn could still be around somehow, some way. We don't know, because there's, nothing's been said definitively as to what happened with those characters. So even with a Luthen, if you were to take it at least to A New Hope, maybe he is still around. Don't know. Wasn't established that he wasn't. So I think there's some pretty interesting possibilities as to what can happen or what you can do with the characters.
Do you like him with his shopkeeper's wig look, or do you like him more here with the close to the shore?
Well, I just love how the personality changes. Like, he plays into the costume that much that he changes his personality with it. No, of course I like this Luthen better than the shop owner Luthen, but he plays the shop owner Luthen up perfectly.
Definitely. I'm the same way. I feel like the Liberace Luthen front in the shop is one delightful character, really. But real Luthen, who, again, garbed like a Mark Hamill a la Star Wars 6, is pretty damn cool. There's something to be said about having that kind of awareness is kind of in line with Jedi qualities, and makes you wonder, post original trilogy, he's human as far as we know, so he's probably just by age dead, but is it possible that he may have been a Force sensitive or something along those lines? We really don't know, and that would be something. I don't know what his fate is in the rest of this series, or if he'll meet his fate in the next series, but there's a lot of potential there. And big shout out to the Skarsgårds. Like, everything I see them in turns to gold. They're like the new Denzel Washington. They can just do no wrong.
Outstanding. Well, I feel like it's time to show our audiences our true colors. And I'll go first since I'm speaking. This is a shout out to all the parents and school teachers in the world, some of which may be with us this evening. I'm going to use this as my prop. And tonight's One Way Out is going to get, that's right, Play-Doh green. For all of you out there, it's squishy, it smells funny, don't eat it, or maybe you can. It's completely, there you go,
just like you. Perfect. It's
yes,
squishy, it smells funny, just like Psyllium Maas.
Amen on the council there. So we're going Play-Doh green. I loved, again, we've talked about the show's merits constantly since we began this segment of the Graying Jedi, following our analysis of Ahsoka. But like I said, this final episode just narrowed all of the creative choices, as we said countless times, into 2 monologues and a conversation. And from that skeletal structure, that's where you had real magic. And, what's great is the next episodes, which will be written by showrunner Tony Gilroy, will go in a completely different direction, and yet it won't feel like it's not all part of the same wonderful storytelling, and the fact that you can do that, where you can give an episode over to strong performances and action, and then in the next episode you might have 7 or 8 stories happening simultaneously, and you're cutting frantically back between one and the other and building intensity through the editing, and that way. And it doesn't matter what the approach is. The ultimate effect is that the audience is on the edge of their seats, breathlessly awaiting what comes next. So, green Play-Doh tonight for One Way Out.
Well, I'll go next, seeing as I knocked everything over while you were talking. Because there were 2 phenomenal monologues, I'm going to go with one of the greatest backcourts probably in NBA history. Two of the best pairings ever. And I'm going to go Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, Boston Celtics, short shorts, green, because it was that good. So it's only deserving of the best two forwards in NBA history to grace the court.
Golf clap.
So I will go. It kind of went with I know I went with Kevin McHale last week, but
Yep.
again, two monologues, two of the
Amen.
greats right here.
Very good. And I woefully don't have a green prop anywhere near me, but I will also go with the green lightsaber. This is probably my favorite episode of the series thus far. And I've really liked a lot of these episodes, but this one, it absolutely deserves the Emmy. Everybody who played a character or a role in this episode was simply outstanding. I would have liked to see a little more Val.
Or Dedra.
That's just wishful thinking, but or Dedra, or no, just those two really. I could always go for more Mon Mothma.
And Bix is broken,
but,
so
you know,
she's not as much.
It is what it is. Bix is broken, likely a la Michael in the back of the cage singing herself show tunes for my Supernatural fans out there. Aside from that, outstanding episode from top to bottom. I was riveted from start to finish. Andy Serkis, I take my hat off to you once again. I don't think I've ever seen anything with Andy Serkis that was bad. I don't even think I've seen anything with Andy Serkis that was not as good as what I would have hoped to see. Although I will say I would have liked to see him in more as Claw in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I hope at some point they do some sort of a throwback movie where he plays a bigger role. But, you know, wishful thinking. I'd love to see Robert Downey Jr. back as Tony Stark too. So what do you do? That being said, the Jedi Council has convened a 16th occasion next week. I can't wait to see the next episode of Andor. I would really encourage all of you Padawans, future Jedi, or gray Jedi, hit that subscribe button. Click that notification link. Make sure you stay up to date with every Graying Jedi episode. Don't miss out on our shorts content, our Cinebits, the Warp Core podcast, recently dropping a new episode as well, episode 42. The episodes we talked about, are they the greatest? Maybe not, but we are. And, as always, from a galaxy far, far away, I wish to you all.
And also with you.
Blessed art thou amongst Jedi.